Salam, Namaste, Sat Shri Akal, Adab. You will see this bright smile on my face. It's for a reason. I've been wanting to get him on my talk show for some time. I've been stalking him on his Instagram and just generally his discourse for some time now. And I'll tell you why. Firstly, very relevant, very kind, has a body language which wants to give. It resonates deeply with me. So what he puts out there as his brand is what I receive as a trust from him as well. So it gives me immense pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Sanjay Arora, but a brother to me and a Sanjay to me.
Thank you so very much, Kunal. Those kind words, that kind of warmth and hospitality, only an ISH guy can give someone. Thanks so much.
So we met briefly yesterday, Sanjay. Before we go into what you're really kind of good about, tell me something. When you have been a 5-time TEDx speaker, now a 6-time TEDx speaker, I've been on the circuit. Every time we are putting a message out there, what do you think is the impact of such messaging?
So the idea of TED and TEDx is simple. Ideas that inspire.
Correct.
That's the ground line for us. That if we can put out something there which inspires the young generation, the generation that's going to be responsible for the future, we've done our job. We've done our job.
So right. I love the last slide which you displayed yesterday. And that was
frustration is the
father of creativity. Just delve on that. What do you exactly mean by that? I know all creative guys are quirky. They have 200 bad days, but those 2 Eureka days where all the creativity comes out. So talk a little bit more about that analogy.
That line basically, again, I think should have come from some frustration only. Because frustration is you want something and you're not satisfied. When you're not satisfied with the status quo, that's when you feel something needs to change. And that deep desire to be dissatisfied with what is the current situation and imagine a better situation, first it comes in your mind and then you can operationalize it in real time. That frustration leads to something, a spark, which can come up with a better idea, better concept, and that could be a game changer. That's what that line is all about.
The audience for this particular talk show, Sanjay, incidentally is right from 20 to about 60. So you have some leaders also watching this, but you also have youngsters who are watching this. For a leader, I would say that end of the spectrum is about reaffirmation, about maybe the decisions that they made and what you talk and what I talk. And for the youngsters, of course, their whole journey in front of them. You picked up a phenomenal topic. The topic itself was, in my opinion, very powerful. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you why the topic is powerful is because that's a lived reality for me. It was not an academic subject. The subject yesterday, incidentally, because most of the viewers may not know this, is the current education system killing creativity? Is it designed to kill creativity? And that's because I felt the truth of the matter is it is. Because education seeks those it can regimentize. In a classroom, imagine what happens in a classroom is any student who's able to reproduce what the teacher has actually given as notes or as a lecture, as it is verbatim, will always get more marks than another student who's thought something on his or her own and written in her own words. And if you are good at something but fail at one subject, you are considered a failure. And I was a failure. The first sentence I start every talk of this kind is that I flunked my 12th and flunked big time. I got 0.9 out of 100 in mathematics in my 12th boards. And that is what made me realize that not everyone is created equal. I was very good at some other subjects. I was very good at writing. I was good at something, but those weren't recognized. And this whole education system wants to kind of, it's like, if you were supposed to buy steel, would you buy it in liters? Is that the only unit that you have? But in our industry, your mark sheet is the only unit you've got to assess intelligence. And intelligence, I don't think, is accessible only by marks. Marks, number one. And there are different kinds of intelligence. It's not just one kind of intelligence that you need to have. I may be bad at something, but I may be very good at something. And the education system has to give me the freedom to explore what I am good at and excel at what I am good at, and not burden me with something like a dead weight, pulling me down with something I'm not good at.
Tell me something, and you can look at me now. Tell me something. This whole aspect about the creativity, right? You spoke about the left side being logic and the right side being creativity. And very early on, you were leaning more towards the right as far as your work profession is concerned. Later on, you realized you also lean towards the left as far as liberalism is concerned. So, but where did this whole idea about advertising and being an advertising guy come about? Was it early?
No. I'll tell you what, we lived in at that point in time, I'm talking about, I was doing my MBA back in the 84, all right. There was no internet, there was no exposure. I was in a small town called Nagpur, which is a well. No sunlight gets in there, or used to get in there. And believe me, when I was doing my first year of MBA, till then, I had not heard of an organization called an advertising agency. We never even imagined or thought about this fact that someone would be creating the ads that we saw even then. It never struck us then. We were so, I shouldn't say innocent, but ignorant. Then a senior of mine, when we were about to finish our first year of MBA, he was my classmate before I had flunked, so he was very close to me. And he asked me, where would you want to do your summer placement now that you're coming to the end of your first year of MBA? I said, yeah, any organization that accepts me, I don't have much choices, do I? Coming from an MBA institute in Nagpur, who would take me? So whatever I get, I will pick. Beggars can't be choosers. So he said, look, advertising could be good for you because I see what you do and I think advertising would be the right fit for you. And he was slightly more enlightened than me. So that was the first time in my life I heard the word advertising agency. And then there was another friend of mine who was into the business of newspaper publishing. So they had this book called the Indian Newspaper Society Handbook, which lists all the advertising agencies that are accredited with the INS. So I borrowed an old edition from him. I took, because since we were not from a very good bag of financial at that point in time, we were not doing well as a family financially. I couldn't afford to go to Mumbai, which was a mecca of advertising. I couldn't rent rooms and stay there and do my internship. I had relatives in Delhi. So I jotted down all the addresses of all the advertising agencies in Delhi and sent out, there was only snail mail there, sent out applications for internship to all the advertising agencies listed there in Delhi. Only one agency responded, a very small agency in Daryaganj, I will not name it, and that was the only agency that responded out of the 100 others maybe, and said, okay, we'll give you an internship for 1 month. And I went there, and what I saw there, I fell in love with it. So I said, this is what I was made for probably, and this is where I'll make my career.
Sanjay, let's go back to the basics. I'll tell you what is my understanding about, let's say, a brand and advertising, and we take it back to the 80s, and we will retrace our step and progress it till 2024. So for me, when I kind of look at a brand, my definition, right, from many frameworks, my experience is my why and my purpose should align with your why and your purpose. And when the two whys meet, right, trust is formed. And where the trust gets aligned. And my definition of advertising would be, once the trust gets aligned, then you do ethical storytelling. Right? Because the information you're putting out there is what the consumers will take in. They'll believe you because you've got their trust, and you just need to put. And then you get your loyal followers. Now you put that into a consumer durable, you put that into any aspect of commodities, I would say. Right? How far is your definition from my definition? And let's go back to the 80s and how a brand's built during that point in time.
So basically, when you say a brand, what you're saying is true at the very core. But as you travel outwards, you have to look at a few more things. One is, a brand at the end of the day, all said and done with all the complex frameworks and all the abstractions we have, is a perception.
Correct.
When I mention a category, say I soaps, what comes to your mind? So you will normally have 3 or 4 brands that come to your mind, and these are called the evoked state also. So
The brands who have hammered you the most.
whatever.
Yeah.
So that perception of that name that is mentioned is the starting point or essence of the brand. Now it has to have, again, it starts with building awareness. If I don't know you exist, there is no way I can have any perception of you. So first step is awareness. Second step is awareness of a certain kind. So what do I want you to know about me? So that's the first building block of perception. Okay, I know you, but I know you as this. That's where comes in the most important aspect of branding in my opinion, which is differentiation. There are going to be hundreds in the marketplace of any category today. So how are you different from the others? The more different you are, either in terms of reason, emotion, etc., the more of a chance of me remembering you. That's recall. Otherwise, if you're just another Me Too product or an idea, I would probably. Today's world is so complex in terms of communication. You get bombarded with something like 8,000 commercial messages a day. Of which, if something has to stand out, it has to be number one, relevant to you. Number two, it has to be different on some dimension. Okay, so that differentiation. So knowing what for, and then consistency. So if you decided this is how I'm different from the others, now that's the power of expression. Then that is where creativity really steps in. How do I, this difference that I'm presuming my audience will know me for, how do I communicate it in such a way it stands out and is remembered? Again, so this ultimately is what a brand is all about.
We take this example of what you just kind of said, and let's just put it, let's not talk 80s, let's talk post-liberalization. 92 ke baad. What did brands do at that point in time? And I think there were the HULs, the Maricos, right? These were the companies who had penetration, who had, I would say, they were talking to all India's very diverse market. How are they advertising? What I'm trying to get to you is, even at that point in time, okay, mobiles had not come in at that point in time, right? TV or radio was the only, or newspaper for that matter, or magazines were the only way of communicating. How would they do all these things through this medium of communication?
So I'll tell you what, things were rather easy then. So let's go a step behind and look at pre-liberalization. So that was a scarcity economy. Just the fact that you could lay hands on a product was a big thing.
So right.
For me, at that point I remember, for a scooter, a Bajaj scooter, it was then...
waiting was 2 years?
The father used to book for a son.
Wow.
Yeah, it would take a good maybe 15 years for the booking to materialize. All right. So cars, license to be manufactured only X numbers. All right. So it was called the license permit Raj. So we came from a scarcity time into liberalization when suddenly things started, products started becoming available, as well as to a certain extent affordability, disposable income started rising. So these two forces pushed the economy up, and that was the best period for the economy, incidentally. But even then, the media was not fragmented. So one slot on a Ramayana or one slot on a Mahabharata could ensure your message got across to all India at one stroke.
It is where I wanted to understand. You take a Lakso at that point in time, right? The Ramayana would have been seen by, let's say, a Rai Bareli person, and would have also been seen, let's say, from Nariman Point. But did this category cut across?
So
because that Rai Bareli person still couldn't afford that soap.
No. So Lifebuoy was something which was bottom of the pyramid.
I'm not talking about Lifebuoy. I'm talking about Lux.
Lux was slightly above, and above that was Pears.
Correct.
All Liver's brands. All right. So that's why you have so many brands from one manufacturer. Ultimately, the soap does the same thing. All right. It cleans you in the morning.
So each 30-second clip is actually talking to a different India.
Yes.
And that's what they did.
That's why you need more brands, because one brand cannot be targeted at all demographics and psychographics. There are two ways we divide the population, right? Demographics and psychographics. So you may be of the same demographic, the same income group, but you may be having a completely different psychography in terms of how you live your life, how you think, behave, etc. So brands are created based on these segments. That's the fundamental aspect of STP जो कोटलर से बचपन में सिखाते हैं हमको, segmentation, targeting, positioning.
Correct.
So therefore so many brands, and therefore media being one, you didn't have so many different media channels to target each of these. Now today you have a Netflix targeted at something else, a kind of a show targeted at something else, a kind of a podcast targeted at something kind of an audience. So you can take your specific product brand which is targeted to that audience only on that channel. This luxury is available now. Back then media was static in terms of, I'm saying, is one single behemoth which was broad basing everything. So all you had to do was your messaging had to do this job. It had to be on this level. The wastage is going to be large.
But in that, how do you build the trust? How do you build the emotion? How do you build all this? All those things didn't matter at that time.
No, they didn't matter. Pairs always spoke about childlike innocent skin, transparent and all that. All right. So the messaging did that job. Media, the channel was the same. You didn't have a choice. So the wastage was higher. So for example, 80% of the audience then watching Mahabharat may never have used pairs. But what it did for pairs was it created the aspiration at that level that one day when I'm rich, I'm going to be using pairs.
But tell me something.
Brand awareness and brand perception build ho gaya.
Even at that point in time, the behemoths, without naming anybody, were they into ethical advertising?
No, ethical and non-ethical are functions of time and also companies. All right. Most advertising, if I may put it that way, most is ethical. Like most population is trustworthy. If I'm doing a business today, I'm giving out credit to all my clients, right? It is nothing but trust that they will definitely pay me tomorrow. And similarly, I'm getting services from all the vendors across based on a certain trust. So because 99% of the population is trustworthy and ethical, we survive. Similarly, 99% of the companies are ethical, advertising is ethical. There is always going to be that fringe, which is not, and which gives every profession the bad name. Name any profession for that matter, I won't name names, but there are going to be those fringe elements which bring the entire profession.
But largely, by and large, what you're saying is there has been ethical practices.
Yes.
In your
100%. Meaning, one-off case here or there.
Yeah, that's fine. So, Sanjay, how has then advertising, your field, how did it progress? Because consumerism changed from selling, we evolved into experiences. So how does advertising evolve in the last 7 years?
So evolution has been in a kind of synchronous with the evolution of the markets and the consumer itself. At one point in time, India was not exposed to the Western influence so much, except for the very, very infinitesimally small population that traveled abroad. Okay, they didn't know what was happening, and therefore whatever they got was good. As internet happened, television happened, foreign shows happened. Now, of course, whatever happens in Milan fashion show today, I see it right there, and therefore my expectations and aspirations are the same. The girl sitting in Bareilly, or maybe even a smaller village near Bareilly, on her YouTube, watching that, her aspirations are the same as the girl sitting in New York.
The only difference is she can't afford it.
At this point, maybe, but that doesn't, mean that she doesn't know about it. In our young youth times, we didn't know what was happening.
Because there was no awareness.
There was no way I could get that. So
you could see only what you wanted to see.
No, you could not. You could only see what was available for you. Not what you wanted to. So the point I'm trying to make
or
is,
what was shown to you.
So the consumer today is as aware, sitting wherever he or she is. It's a globalized consumer today. So you can't pull a fast one on that consumer.
So in this day and age, how does advertising work? And I'll tell you, I'll prelude this with another question. Can brand exist, in your opinion, across segments of India? Right? And this segment is, we spoke yesterday, it was about 4 segments, but if you further classify those 4 segments, there could be 40 segments within those.
Those are only income segments. There's so many other parameters.
There are other parameters as well. So can there be a national brand today? Let's just ask. Let me ask
as a national brand, नाम की चीज नहीं होती है, ठीक है? Because the first thing that a brand wants to own is a certain idea, as you said right in the beginning, right? And that is my brand's DNA, and it will be relevant to a certain segment. Even a commodity like salt, okay, Tata Salt may be selling the most, but I always give this example of something called the catch. Now, Tata Salt is available for 25 rupees a kg. Salt in the commodity in sacks is available at 7 rupees a kg. So from 7 rupees, when it wears those orange and black colors of Tata, as a salt, it becomes 25 rupees a kg. And the moment it gets into a small tube called catch, it becomes 250 rupees a kg. It's 25 rupees for 100 grams. So now it's a commodity at the end of the day. Most common commodity is salt, we say, right? But even that cannot be a national brand. Of course, Tata owns, I guess, a bulk of the market. But even then, as I'm saying, because...
Is it because this is such a diverse country?
Anywhere across the world, because different sets of people will have different expectations from the same product.
But still, the other countries, I would still say, and let's take US as a market, right? We've traveled there so very often. I still see it as a homogeneous.
No, not at all.
No?
Okay, heterogeneity in terms of our regional preferences, and India is a different country every 100 kilometers.
Yeah. Each pin code is a different culture.
Yes, in a way.
Yeah.
But then the emotional appeals of human beings remain the same. The fear, the love, the mother's love for the child. These are common threads that weave the human population together. The expression of them may be different in different ways, cultural aspects, and therefore you have to keep that in mind. So a good standardized snack is what you will love. For the US guy, it may turn out to be a Mac burger. For India, Mac Tiki Aloo or whatever they call it, right? So they ensured that they converted what was their strengths of standardized quick service satisfying food served hygienically and fast from a burger to Mac Aloo Tikki.
Because of this segmentation again, let me ask you again this question. It's for my consumption, for the audience consumption. In your opinion, should brand only talk to a certain segment today? Is because the way segmentations have happened, or is basically laser focus on something and create a category there and own that category, or can play in multiple categories, multiple markets, penetration, distribution, because that comes with a cost as well.
So there is a quote that I have, the favorite, it's my own, so I love it, is sacrifice is the essence of strategy. So what that means primarily is, unless more important than knowing who you are for, or equally important is knowing who you are not for.
Correct.
All right. Any brand will always appeal to a certain segment, every segment of people, and all products start as being generic products. So in the soap category, for example, when the soap category began, there were bars of soaps kept in the market without any name, without any labeling, and you picked up by kilos. Because everyone bought the same bar of soap, every manufacturer made it the same way, and you needed it to clean you up in the morning. That's about the job of a soap. That's how the soap market started off. Then the distributors ruled the roost because they decided who they will buy it from. The consumer got the choice, he have to buy it from me. So therefore they started dictating. Some bright manufacturers thought of putting something in that product, maybe a different color, maybe a different fragrance, and his or her name on that, and saying, no, ask for this because this is better on this dimension. That's where the first task of branding probably happened. Seeing this guy, the other guy said, okay, if you want this and you're buying this, I give you this, and this is my name. Remember me for this. So gradually, from a homogeneous market, a segment started emerging. And then as things move further, specialized segments start appearing, right? So it happens in every category. So it's only footwear to begin with. And then you have a separate shoe for the office and a separate shoe for casual wear. And then you have a slipper. And then you have something called athleisure wear. So what is happening is, every time someone says, yeah, this need is not met by the others, and I can do this better for this guy. Golf shoes, for example. And I can only specialize in golf shoes. So you create a segment for golf shoes, who will not then be satisfied with buying a typical athlete shoe, So that's how all markets emerge. Every new player who looks at the market looks at what is that unfulfilled segment that I can target.
Absolutely right. But purely as a consumer, the way I see it right now, everyone is targeting, let's say, the 2 crore, 3 crore Indians.
Not everyone.
Restaurant chains, hotel chains, everything is to the 2 crore, 20, 30, 40, 50 million people, right? Overcrowding the market, it's become saturated. You take cloud kitchens, for instance. I'll give you an example. Like within a neighborhood, you'll have 40, 50 killing each other.
Yes.
Right? There is no barrier to entry. I'm all for capitalism. But the fact that we are an aping economy rather than an innovating economy is where my problem really starts. We are not innovating anymore, right? You move away from this 50 million, then you hear or see brands that you haven't heard of them before, right? Very localized kind of brand, but they are perhaps the MSME produced, right? And celebrated amongst 300, 400, 500, 600 million people. My question is, we are hearing about brands only in the first category. Why aren't we hearing much about brands? Or is it because I come from the a particular segment and I don't want to see that, or brands exist or they don't exist? Give us a sense.
Basically, this is changing very, very rapidly now because of course, democratization of media. Once upon a time, media was concentrated in the metros. So obviously, the gatekeepers were in the metros and they could only see what was around them. And therefore, you would see brands which had a good PR machinery being spoken about, etc., etc. While regional brands at their own levels were doing reasonably well. All your Haldirams of the world started regionally, right?
Yeah.
Haldirams is a case in point which I've handled the brand for 35, 36 years now. And the eldest brother of the family stays in Nagpur. He was the one who started Haldirams as a brand. Even the Delhi branch was started by him.
In my opinion, they understood the pulse of palate.
Where I'm coming from is your question. He was the one who started Delhi also and then moved to Nagpur. Okay. So it was a typical regional brand who no one spoke about when the Lehers of the world from Pepsi came in, etc. And then suddenly internet happened and experiential branding happened. And look where Haldiram is today. They've been valued, I think, at 70,000 crores or something, and going for probably an IPO or whatever. One keeps reading in the newspapers. So Balaji, another case in point, Namkeens from Gujarat, is a huge national brand today.
Sanjay, because you handle Haldirams, I just need to ask you a question. Here is a brand which is transgenerational.
Yeah.
My children also appreciated Haldiram. Your child also appreciated Haldiram. We also appreciated it. How come there are just few brands left today which are transgenerational and people still have affiliation while the others have just kind of moved on from the brand? They've written off brands.
There are many, many brands. MTR is a transgenerational brand. TVS is a transgenerational brand.
So what is so unique about them?
What is the South ka sarees ka retail outlet? There are many Indian brands. Unfortunately, what happens is because of tons of money spent by multinational brands, those get, in our memory, they get outshouted.
So the social behavior and the psychological behavior towards the brand changes in our mind.
The moment your wife goes to Chennai and wants to pick up a sari, she'll go to that. Yes, she'll probably, she's picked up a Louis Vuitton when she was in Paris.
Understand.
So that brand is still there and is as strong for the category. But probably that category requirement will not be as much today as it was yesterday because young girls are not wearing saris as much.
So to the point again, take the sari brand for instance.
I'm forgetting the name.
Even I'm forgetting the name, but I'll put it in the caption. Why is it so regionalized? Because sari again is that where everyone wears in India. I can tell you even today, you have these college fets, ISH. You have children coming from all over. But when there is a formal event or an evening event, the young ladies love to wear a sari.
Yes.
How come we have not created such national brands? Why is it so very region specific?
That sari brand was regional because they started out with South Indian saris, typically, which every lady would have 2 or 3 of in her wardrobe. South, they would be predominantly, of course, their wardrobe would comprise of 90% of those. North, 1 or 2 maybe they would have those kind of saris. So that's one probably reason. And of course, all of them were starting out from what I said was a scarcity economy here. But today, at that point in time, I remember a guy would not be able to probably build a house till he retired, and somehow if he managed 1 room or something, it would be a big achievement for him. Today, a guy gets into his first job and first thing he does is books an apartment in Gurgaon of 2.5 crores or 2 crores. That is the kind of shift that has happened in economics, also in family economics. And also remember that the salary at which the father retired, the guy who's getting into his first job today gets 10 times or 5 times more money as a start. So that's also changing the behavior.
So I'll tell you, again, I go back to the national brand. In fact, someone asked me this question about 2 months ago, wanted an opinion from me. This particular restaurant brand, I can't name them, right? wanted to be pan-national and they were raising money for that. And they asked me, Kunal, do you think restaurants in India could be pan-national? Then I kind of thought to myself, I said, the answer, again, logically, the left-hand side, yes. But when I look at how brands have fared in the restaurant business all over India for the last 78 years, there's not a single national brand. You take QSR out of it, you take the McDonald's out of it. I'm talking about let's say, restaurant chain. They're very region specific. There may be concentration. That means Bombay could have the same restaurant, 10 of them. Bangalore could have 20 of them. But that restaurant will not work, let's say, in a Sikkim. That it won't work. A Sikkimese restaurant will not work. So how come, I go back to the same question, that we haven't created a national brand? We have created a national distribution system. We have created a national marketing, right? But we have not created a national brand. Because this national brand, take a Lancôme for instance. It's a national brand. It's all over the world. Right? Or you take a Garnier for instance. It's all over the world. Take Korean cosmetics. It's all over the world. How come we haven't been able to do it?
No, brands are emerging now. Look at, I'll keep debating this.
Is that a barrier?
No. You can't compare someone who's had a 150 years history of capitalism and brand building to a nation which got liberalized only in the 90s, which where actually the race really began.
Absolutely.
So we are only about it in 24 plus another 10, 34 years.
Or maybe what, $750 billion की economy थी तभी.
34 years. 34 years में आप देखो आज की तारीख में कितने सारे strong brands बन गए. Titan for watches is an amazingly strong national brand. Carrot Lane is coming along. Tanishq is such a strong. Whoever thought that Indians would buy branded jewelry because every family had a family jeweler.
Yeah.
The moment trust comes in, Tata comes in, then you see and then others follow suit, right? And say, well, you have so many jewelry brands today which are going international, incidentally, not just national. Not just national. Yeah. So you have today. If you go to Dubai, all our brands here, the Kalyan,
so it takes, what you're essentially trying to say is, it takes about 20 to 30 years to really make it, and then you can profiteer from it.
Tons of money to brand. You know, it's branding is not something. So I have this personal equation. I call it B is equal to M into T into X. Okay. So first we look at the M and T. So brand is equal to money into time. So either you have time on your side, and if you are a good product and service, your brand will automatically emerge. Most of the brands, Haldiram's, etc., happened that way. 80 years into the business, and now they are a brand. They didn't spend money. Or the other way around is, you are large, like a Tata, you can spend tons of money and become a brand in the next 2 years or so. Okay, so M into T. One of the factors have to be large for the end result B to be large. And the third is innovation. X is the innovation. You get a patent. Okay, you get something which others can't compete on. A unique, secured competitive advantage, like a patent. Okay, then you can do it faster because then there is no competition in the market. You've invented something yourself.
But tell me something again, and I ask you this question because 40 years of experience, I can't let you go without not asking you such kind of questions. Is innovation really happening? You know, Kishore Biyani repeats it, and it resonates with me. And in one of the podcasts, he was talking about the fact, he's saying, where is that value addition which is happening? What is happening is, there is, you could take it's a repackaging or repurposing that is happening, but there is no value addition which is happening.
Tremendous is happening. I'll give you the example from the fintech industry, for example. Fintech industry, India is number one today. Every innovation happened here. Today, okay, I was
more talking about consumer durable.
You have to look at the entire spectrum. So, ऐसा नहीं innovation नहीं हो रहा है.
Innovation हो रहा है.
Tons of innovation is happening. In fact, US guys, when they come to India, I have friends coming in, they're surprised where we transfer money and pay. You know, we don't need to carry wallets. We don't carry credit cards. We've, as in the case of mobiles, we've leapfrogged the stage of credit cards and come to something post credit card.
Yeah, I tell this to everyone. Chest thumping. You forget Shanghai airport, all right? Hari is a dear work colleague of mine. He's the president of Bangalore International Airport. What an airport. The new terminal. Have you been there? It is phenomenal. The new terminal.
Yes,
have you been there? Oh, crazy.
Even some tier 2.
Now the Jewar airport, I've you heard about it. Of course, tier 2 airport. The new Pune airport.
Indore airport is very good.
I'm sure.
I can't say the same
new
thing about
Mumbai
Nagpur,
airport.
though.
I think it's completely changing
Yeah,
the way.
So,
I think we are showing the people from that perspective. My question was more towards
मेरा
that.
एक ही बोलता हूँ, we started the race only 30 years ago. Wait
सही
another
बात.
20 years and see what will happen.
Yeah.
So we are on the right track, provided,
Yeah.
and that's the key thing. Provided the
Provided.
people up there don't
Yeah.
screw us up before that.
Yeah.
I'll not mince words there.
Yeah, for sure. But okay, since you've spoken about this, there is another, I would say, just from an Indian perspective, right? Is वो बोलते हैं ना, ये सारे जो politicians हैं, you know, when they campaign in poetry, right?
Yeah.
But when they come to power, it's in prose, and the implementation is completely very different. So whoever so is in power, you know, वो होता है ना, the idea whose time has come, right? Now, no matter what forces come, the opposite force is so strong that we will cut through all the clutter.
It's nice to believe that. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Look at
True.
North Korea.
True.
Tortured for the last 40, 50 years now. कितनी generations चले गई? So the idea is...
मुझे लगता है, if we, to your point, if we just do what is right and execute, you know, if there is a plan, execute, everyone is held accountable. This,
you know, the
20 years, our children, this is the best country to be.
The today's generation, I keep saying them, I go to all the college things, etc., that you're the luckiest generation ever born, alright? But the point is to unleash the spirit of this young generation, the youthfulness, the democratic dividend that we have, or demographic dividend that we have, or whatever we call it. You have to make things easy for them. Today, the paperwork, any entrepreneur, I run a small business. I have two people who just do the paperwork, all the bloody returns that have to go in quarterly, monthly. Well, the impreciseness of everything, the interpretive complexity of every law, it makes, you know, they can, if they want, have me on the wrong side of law whenever they want, despite me wanting to follow all the laws. Those things are so complex. So the entrepreneur gets unnecessarily burdened with all of this. A small organization like me has to devote two people who only do this kind of clerical work for the government. Why should I be doing your clerical work? You have thousands upon thousands of guys. Let them do the clerical work, no? You take taxes from me. Why do you want me to do your clerical work?
Well, it could also be because, for whatever reason, maybe it's just who we are. Some of us do not report correctly or misappropriate numbers, right? Hence, sometimes this over-indexing of oversight is required.
The oversight is all right, but what about complexity? Have you ever tried to fill up your own income tax form? I'm sure you cannot do it.
I can't do it.
Why should it be so difficult? Educated people like us cannot fathom how to fill a simple income tax form, and they call it saral. If this is saral,
I'm sure with this whole digital stack right now, even somebody out there must be looking at it.
My doubts. I'm a cynic.
You know, a friend of mine. So I had asked him this question, and I'm going to ask you the same question. So I asked him, and he's president of one of JLL. And I had asked him this question a long time back, about 4 years. He said, I asked him, Sandeep, what keeps you awake at night? And he said, you know, that young boy or girl at that point in time, Cafe Coffee Day, he had mentioned, sitting in that corner, trying to disrupt my industry, keeps me awake at night, right? And such is the power of that disruption of that youth, the way they are thinking and channelizing.
Yes.
Today, in my opinion, no youth is graduating out of a college thinking कि मुझे CEO बनना है. Everyone is graduating, boys, girls, everybody, thinking कि मुझे founder बनना है. And that, according to me, is the greatest gift India can have, where we can have another, I would say, 1 million entrepreneurs coming into the system and creating, let's say, tens of millions of jobs.
So everything is happening not because of the system, but despite the system. Fighting against the system to do it. You know, that's where the energies are being wasted, in my opinion. Yes, all credit to them. All credit to them. But unfortunately, you know, we should have given them a runway for this. The kind of energy we've got, the kind of youth that we've got today, we should have given them a runway, but we're giving them speed breakers instead. Yet they're flying off, which is touchwood, hats off. But then there's a word of caution I have here, which I often, when I speak to them, is basically we've glamorized the word startup and entrepreneur too much. It's a very painful process.
Of course.
Only about 1% of them will see the light of the day.
For sure.
99% have to be prepared for failure, which we aren't. They
For
just
sure.
feel good about talking about I'm a startup.
Yeah.
That's at time also a camouflage for I'm unemployed.
Yeah, that's also, and I've said this in one of my earlier talks, is we demonize failure. We should celebrate failure.
Celebrate failure, yes.
Absolutely.
But
This society should celebrate for the next 100 years failure. So we were talking about, so we should celebrate failure more for the next 100 years.
101%, and therefore you have to mentally prepare that young guy for failure, which we are not doing. Which we are not doing, and that is where there'll be a lot
I think that onus is on parents and not on the system.
parents and also the education system, which is creating incubators and all. Right from there on, you have to tell them that this is going to be a part of your life. Fail fast is a phrase today, yaar. Fail ho, aage badho, do next project. Next project, don't take it seriously. That and you, your personal identity is not attached to that.
You know, these analogies, firstly, it doesn't resonate with me at all. ये fail fast क्या है यार? 52 years में, there is a campaign or a strategy that I do today, I fail. 4 out of 5 times I fail. One campaign or one strategy works for me, and that works brilliantly then for ISH. So this whole aspect, I think it's a just a continuous process.
But मेरा वही कहना है, because we need to psychologically train the minds of those people who are getting to become founders that hero worship is not the route. There'll be one Nikhil Kamath with Zadora, will be 100 others who've done the same thing and not succeeded and gone on to do something else. There is life beyond this. So वो वाला important part है.
What would you tell now people, you know, this whole generative AI and AI, especially in advertising and creativity, because you can just put in your codes and it generates out of it. I have my own reasons, but I want to know your insights into the fact that where do you think advertising would be today, and let's say when there is Chat GPT 10.0 and all the other tools which are available, where do you think advertising will evolve?
So basically, I'll tell you, the need for human insight will always be there. Okay, insight is the first building block of any communication campaign.
Correct.
And insights, in my opinion, are things which humans observe in other human beings' behavior as well as thought process, which probably a Chat GPT will find very difficult getting through. The rest of the aspect, wording it in a certain way, coming up with 100 different ideas to communicate the same thing, will definitely, in a way, Chat GPT might be able to, any AI tool will be able to do better. So that will make the job more precise, faster, yes, but ultimate judgment again would be from a human being.
So these will be good enablers and aid tools.
Yes. You need to learn how to use them as a tool rather than as a crutch.
As a crutch. So right. I think that's a really nice way of putting it.
Like we used to talk about marketing research at one point. The enlightened one use it as a lamppost for shedding light. The drunken ones use it as support. So
right. Tell me something, Sanjay. Can brands today, of course they are being built, can sustain purely digital and not through distribution?
No, it depends on, everything is contextual. What kind of a brand are you? If you're a brand where the sensory aspect of it becomes very, very critical,
then
and your physical distribution is a must. All those brands, remember, Lenscarts of the world, what ladder is that?
Urban Company.
No, the ladder.
It's called Urban Company now.
Furniture company. I'm forgetting the name of that company here. So they started off as digital brands and then got into brick and mortar. Why? Because they understood the consumer needs to come somewhere, have a touch and feel and experience, etc. So it's going both ways. The brands that were brick and mortar are going digital. The brands that are digital are going brick and mortar. So don't think of them as being in silos.
Yeah.
It has to be.
And eventually, do you think both will coexist?
They have to coexist. Depending on the category, you may need more of brick and mortar in certain cases. As a restaurateur, you would know. You would need a restaurant, right?
But tell me something. It's so interesting that you're talking about it. Do you think, again, premiumization, that segment may behave very differently in every aspect?
Yeah.
Fintech se leke consumer durable. But India 1, 2, 3 will still be very sensitive?
101%, because अगर गांव में जाते हो तो गांव में that human being who's sitting at the kirana store guy is a brand in himself. People trust him. And उसका apart from
आप
the selling,
कितना भी अच्छा प्रोडक्ट बना दो, उसने एंडोर्स नहीं किया.
हाँ, and also he's offering far more value-added services than just selling. He's giving you credit. He's giving you घर पे delivery. He's giving you हजार other things which Zomatos of the world are catching on now. Home delivery for a kirana wala was a thing that's been continuing for 50 years. आप 2 साबुन की टिकिया बुलाते थे, उसका साइकिल पे आदमी लेके घर पर देके जाता था.
और क्रेडिट भी देता है.
क्रेडिट तो बोले थे मैंने पहले, क्रेडिट से लेके महीने में एक बार जो नौकरी करता है वो 1 तारीख को पिछले महीने का क्रेडिट सेटल करता है. नेक्स्ट महीने की उधारी उसकी किराने की लिस्ट उसके पास है, उसमें कम ज्यादा कुछ करना है बताओ आपको घर में सामान.
और शायद अभी भी वही हो रहा होगा इंडिया 3-4 में.
काफी हद तक होता है. तो दोनों को इंडिया इतना लार्ज और कॉम्प्लेक्स मार्केट है कि दोनों काफी इन द फोर्सिबल फ्यूचर तक दोनों कोएग्जिस्ट कर सकते हैं.
Do you think in the next 10 years there will be 10 Indian brands who would be global brands in any category?
If you're talking about the list of 100 top global brands जिसके बारे में मैंने मेरी में बात की थी,
there is a Nike out there, and let's say in the footwear.
I don't think there'll be 10 brands in the next 10 years.
Okay.
Very difficult, very honestly.
20 years.
There's not even a brand in them from China which is way ahead of us in every aspect. You may not like China, but what they've done is miraculous, to say the least, and we are way behind what they are. So even they have not been able to break into the top 10 brands, the most valuable brands of the world even today.
Why?
Because it takes time, number one, and to become the number one brand in those top 10 or top 100 is a factor of many complex reasons and not just one thing. You have to be a global master at something. You have to get those kind of emotional values across the world. You have to have that kind of a turnover, etc.
Can I give you my take on this?
Yeah.
So I'm not an expert.
I'm also not an expert. You're just discussing. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, hospitality brands. I'm just giving you my take. Take the Oberoi's for instance. Take the Leela's for instance. They compete with the best in the world. That's the best export of services of hospitality anywhere in the world. So if you put, let's say, a Ritz-Carlton out there, any of the Oberoi hotels can be easily compared. I was part of 2 major airlines in India. I'm telling you, way ahead of its time.
Yeah, I totally agree there.
Right? And they would compete with anyone in the world. ISH, for instance, and this is a very tall order I'm kind of talking about. In my opinion, if we just go about doing and disrupting us every single year, right? I'm a better version this year than I was last year. So, लोग पूछते हैं ISH का है, ISH 7.0 चल रहा है. अगले साल ISH 8.0 होगा. In the next 5 to 7 years, if we do everything the way it's supposed to be, this will be one of the best hospitality education brand, if not in the top 10 in the world. I have no doubt about it. ISB today competes with the Harvards and the Stanford and the Babsons and the Tucks and the Chicago Booths of the world. So I think वही मैं कह रहा हूँ, इंडिया का टाइम आया. I'm sure Mama Earth, whatever their formulation is, right, can compete with the best. And what a category she has kind of built from that perspective. So I believe that, but what it requires is well capitalization. What it requires is, I would say, like a Korea, like a South Korea, a very nationalized effort to put ourselves out there. So I was reading somewhere, there is a department in South Korea which takes the local brand, and that department of the government is promoting it outside, not the manufacturer. फिर आपको लेके जा रहे हैं, he said, please come, all right, look at this. And that's where the K-pop, that's where the Korean cosmetics happen. It also requires an institutional effort to put out there. I think that will happen, and that's where we will influence the world.
We were coming from 2 different perspectives. My perspective was the top 100 most valuable brands across the world, any category. So they're difficult. Each category, you say probably hospitality, yes, we will definitely, in the top 10 brands, we will have a brand there. But not in terms of valuation of the brand coming in the top 100.
For sure. Then so to your point,
I thought your
30
question
years.
was that.
No, okay, sorry. But The point is, we are just still 30 years
There,
old.
yes, there, yes,
You know, you
definitely,
can't.
yes.
Yeah.
We will have many categories
Yeah.
where Indian brands would be amongst the top
Yeah.
5, top 10 in the world.
And because of this digital stack and all, the compounding starts.
Yes, yes.
Right? Because we have not seen one or two layers what perhaps the other countries are saying, and we have leapfrogged.
We leapfrog.
We have leapfrogged
Exactly,
that from
exactly,
that.
exactly. Yeah, true.
Sanjay, if you remove brand and advertising, how come you're such a kind and a nice person?
Yeah, and this is a little awkward and embarrassing.
Yeah.
One never thinks of those things. It comes naturally. I don't think I
No,
make an
seriously.
effort to be that way.
Yeah. And I go back to the fact, I didn't know you a year ago, right? I met you yesterday.
For the first
and
time.
I thought I knew you for a year.
I said the same thing, right?
For the simple reason, because I've been following you. I've been following your recommendations as well, as far as books are concerned.
Thank you.
And some marketing, I would say, frameworks.
Thank you.
That you kind of spoke about. Some of them, I applied it here.
Thanks so
So
much.
for me, it's learning happening from you. But today, you are that brand, goes back to your purpose, is meeting my purpose. Would
Perfect.
you agree?
Yeah,
And
perfect.
your why is meeting my why, and hence I trust you.
Yes.
Those 5 books or 2 books that you recommended, I would say, you know what, so many people are talking about it, right? Why should I even? But something resonated, and hence you had that such loyal base of followers. Fanboy moments, even for me.
Thank you so much.
No,
I don't
no,
even
no,
know what to
seriously,
say.
you are good in what you do. ये कैसे बने हो आप ऐसे?
यार ये कोई प्रश्न का उत्तर कोई भी नहीं दे सकता. ऊपर वाले ने जो चाहा वैसे बन गए.
नहीं
Because
ये तब के बनता है.
नहीं, तब के बाद whatever I've had my share of, as I said yesterday also, went through a lot. So probably that shaped something. My parents shaped me a lot. So my father, who selflessly contributed to our lives, you could see him wearing that banyan with holes in it while ensuring that his sons got the best education. That probably played a role. All these things happen subconsciously. You don't realize them now. When they're gone, you realize यार क्या किया उन्होंने.
True.
It still brings tears to my eyes. I couldn't express enough gratitude when he was around, probably, and that subconsciously shapes a human being.
You know,
And you realize-
someone's clearly saying, the one thing which you don't want to take into our older self is regret, because it hits you really hard.
Yeah.
You know, that is one thing we don't want to have. But tell me, Sanjay, would you have been you if your wife, your son, you have a daughter?
Yeah.
They wouldn't have been that tacit support behind you.
No ways. Not possible at all. Meaning, your domestic life defines 80% of your life. If there is no peace there, if there's no support there, if there's no love, warmth, feeling of complete security there in that fort, your outside life is going to be impacted, come what may. I've seen very successful people, I will not name names at all. We were sitting in a Bombay restaurant. This very fine gentleman who I used to admire and adore. He was the CEO of one of the largest F&B companies in the world. I saw him get into a tiff with his wife over another woman, and they had a fight right there in the restaurant, and he beating her up in the restaurant.
Wow.
Okay, and I said, यार ये आदमी को लोग इतना polished आदमी सोचते हैं वर्ल्ड में, ऐसी इमेज है उसकी, ये है वो
कोई
है.
ना perception or reality.
So what is the point? What is at the end of the day, if you don't have a good, your fort has to be secure first, then you go out and conquer the world. It becomes easier.
Did you have decadal plans for you when you were 50s? What would you
Never.
do?
I'm one of those guys who lived life very spontaneously, very, very honestly. Would have been one of the negatives also, because if you look at it in terms, purely in terms of financial terms, etc., maybe financially I could have made much more money had been a more numbers person and a planned person. I'm a very, people around me suffer for this, honestly, yes, because I'm a very spontaneous and very unorganized man. As a human being, I'm very unorganized. And therefore,
But isn't that your living life? Isn't that
that's,
better?
yeah. So therefore, I said, you come as a package, you know, you come
So
as a
if you had
package.
to define your own archetype, what would it be?
It's very difficult for me to realize.
What would it be?
So basically, I'd say transparent वाला जो archetype होता है वो, because I live life as I am. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I come across as that. I behave. I
Loyal,
100%. And otherwise, there is no point.
sincere.
And there's no other layer on me. What you're seeing is what I am. You know. So nothing superficial about it.
This new role of an influencer, and I'll tell you what I like. Right? I like the fact that unfiltered, you're telling the audience out there and giving your wisdom about advertising, branding, marketing frameworks, and everything. your followers love you for that, from that perspective. Where do you think this can blow up?
When I started,
Do you remember that movie? What was it? Honey, I blew up my kid?
Yeah,
What
something
was
of
it?
that kind. I
Something
don't watch movies also. So I'm a very boring person in personal
Acha.
life.
Okay.
I don't drink. I'm not a foodie. I don't go out for
Let's wrap
movies.
this up. Chalo, let's wrap this up.
I
I'm
don't
just
go
kidding.
for movies. All I do is listen to old Hindi music at times.
Acha.
That's my and ghazals. So that's and read, of course. I read a lot. So उसके अलावा मेरा कोई और शौक ही नहीं है. So in real life I'm a very boring person, honestly. But what we
I need to ask your wife, jhela kaise hai?
really yes. All credit to her.
Yeah,
All credit to her.
seriously. But quirky, creative, that means you have to be there has to be quirks around you.
Yeah, so those are the quirks I think, because
Hanji.
I don't behave like a normal human being would in most circumstances. But what was the question? I forgot the question in this.
So मैं भी भूल गया. Now you tell me, for the next 5 to 7 years, what next?
So the question was, so as I said, I go completely with the flow. There is no plan. When I started off this Instagram thing, my daughter pushed me into it to do some reels. So I did it. I never expected what happened. I don't even know what's going to happen in the future. I'll play along. Whatever happens, I'm there.
But do you think now, after a year, you have more responsibility on your shoulders because now people are looking up to you?
No, I don't think so. I'll be what I am. You like me or hate me, I don't care. Meaning, in the sense, I do what I want to do, and I don't take any responsibility at all. I'm a transparent person. This is me. You like me, good. If you don't like me, thank you so much. You're so kind, and please move ahead. But and I don't plan for the future. So, jo hoga aayega, we'll take it along. Na? Kya hai? I've lived my life. This is the second inning in any case.
From an outside-in perspective, what we have created here, if I had to ask you, besides the brick and mortar, what is your initial first impression?
As I walked in, the first step inside, I was really impressed. And I mentioned this to the gentleman and the lady who were escorting me. The vibrant colors, the vibes, the cheerful atmosphere itself, and everything done thoughtfully. You know, it was not something which... So a lot of the founders' minds had gone into it. It could not be someone only an interior designer who could have done it. The spaces that were created, the way they were created. When we walking towards this, the street-like atmosphere inside of a European cobbled street with those lamps, cast iron lamps, etc. So I think everything is done very, very thoughtfully, which leaves, and every floor is slightly different. Okay, and these small things matter so much, and that tells you that the kind of detailing that is going in, and we are assured of a very, very, very bright future for ISH.
Oh, thank you so much.
100%.
It really 8 years, and
I can imagine
8 different versions, incremental.
Yeah,
right?
as long as the graph is, the trend is there.
Oh, absolutely. I won't allow it anything otherwise,
Yeah.
for the simple reason that's the kind of a person I am. I always believe if I have access to a better information, I need to change.
True.
And if I change, the culture also need to accept that change. And I tell this to everyone who joins me. I said, don't expect. This is a rapid growth company, which basically means there is rapid disruption firstly happening here in the mind. Not necessarily all the disruptions are implemented, but we are just disrupting our thought again and again for the simple reason the market is changing so rapidly from that perspective.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
I started off saying you're a kind man, nice man. The audience would have seen that.
Thank you so much. You're very generous with your words. Thanks so much.
Yeah, this podcast is not about the return of your investment of time. This podcast is about the return of his experience, and maybe if you can learn one or two things, and if the takeaway for you can help you either in your business, in your personal life, in your professional life, in every manner, we would have this would really give us the kind of gratitude that you are benefiting from this conversation. Sanjay, thank you. You've been a real brother.
Thank you, sir. The pleasure has really been all mine. Being here these 2 days, really nice. And I said this to you, and let me say it publicly. I'm available for ISH whenever you want.
Thank you so much. Any last words to that youth out there? Whatever
you make it sound like my obituary.
Not at all. But that's a nice question. Tell me something, honestly. Fun fact. What do you think the epitaph should be?
There should be no epitaphs. Gone and gone forever.
Yeah.
Life should move on.
Lived and gone.
Yeah. Life should move on.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But any last word?
Seriously, nothing. I never think about it.
No.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
God bless.
Thanks so much.
Once again,
so kind.
thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot. Such a pleasure.